dance, pas de deux, begins with a bow, and of course, there are so many different bows in Balanchine, many different ways to bow in his duets. Do you remember how he wanted it in square dance?
Yeah, he wanted it very slight. You know, it's really, he's saying, you know, may I ask you to dance? And then goes over and then says, and, you know, will you dance? And oh, you will dance? And, you know, and it's that kind of progression. And when she acknowledges him and says yes, I think that, you know, it's rather formal, but not, you know, not stiff. That's why I said, you know, it's that nice breath in there to say. You know, it's very conversational.
It's not as formal as the beginning of Nutcracker, for example.
No. And, or, you know, if you came out with The Prince and Sleeping Beauty, these are two people that have been dancing together, but then it's to go into a little bit more formal,
But these gradations, I mean, they're subtle and they have to be right, or all of a sudden you're in the wrong ballet. You worked a lot on all the articulation in the développés, you know, the leg extending out and in. How did Balanchine work on that area?
Well, you know, in class he used to always say that, you know, you really showed the beginning of the thing. As the foot leaves the floor, it has to indicate that it's going to. And there again, there's that breath of going, and then it continues to grow. And that was, you know, a basic from the moment at bar that you started petit développé all the way through to grand adagio in the center of the floor. And he taught it in class, and he expected to see it on the stage.
You should explain that about the original version and with the caller and so forth.
Right. And I remember the summer that we were working on square dance, and my husband and I were spending a lot of time in Connecticut with Mr. Balanchine, and we would have Mr. Keeler, who was doing the calls, and his wife over for Sunday dinner. And we would go over these calls and, you know, whether what he was saying would make sense with the dancing. And he really did very clever calls, and they were strictly the way he would call a square dance. But I do also remember that in performances, sometimes he would not be with what I was doing at all, you know, and he would be saying, and her feet go wickety-whack, and I would be doing a pirouette. And then when I was, you know, doing wickety-whack, which was the gargouillades, you know, then I would be he would say something else, or see her twist and twirl or something like that, you know, So I wasn't terribly sorry when we did it later, and he was not doing the calls anymore. But it really it had a much less formal, actually, feel to it. It was of course much more playful. Although I still think that even with the ballet being danced without the calls, that there's still a playfulness in it. You know, just the simple, I mean, certainly in the girls' dance or the man's dance, where, you know, the principal does one thing and then the corps follows with it, or answers, you know, it's like question and answer. It's a very different ballet now. in that respect, even though the steps are all the same.
So here was an example then where you did know what was coming, that there would be a caller, and it wasn't just, he didn't walk in one day. And
No, he really came to a lot of rehearsals and really worked on, you know, that it would make sense, you know, when he had something to say. When I made my entrance, here comes Pat down the track, I don't know, you know, watch her. And then when Nick Magallanes did the leading role, he said, and here's Nick, and you know, this kind of thing. So he had to really make it coincide.
Do you think he enjoyed it?
The caller?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he really had a ball.
Sometimes too much of a ball.
He would come. You know, we had the orchestra on the stage as well. They were on a platform on the side of the stage, and they all had their Western shirts on, and he had his Western shirt and you know, kerchief around the neck, and he stood there on the side, and we conversed a little bit, and I during the men's dance I sat on the little bit when I, well, I did join in the men's dance, but when I wasn't, I sat on the platform where the orchestra was. So it was fun, but it made the stage, of course, smaller, and everything was off center, which was very odd. You know, we had to we of course were doing it at the city center then, and which wasn't that big also. So, you know, one of the aisles was the center of the stage, which was very odd. It's really strange.
Because the orchestra, the ensemble was on the
stage right, stage right, downstage on stage right. Now, some of the diagonals and things, you can really do much longer, travel more, so that you get back to the center. Otherwise, you were almost in the center when you came in.
Did you ever feel cramped?
Mm-hmm. Definitely did. It was actually easier the second time around. You know.
How so?
I guess, you know, I was 2 years older, but I don't know. I guess because you know, we had done it already. You know how to pace yourself, and. But it was still done at that time without the man solo. Yes. It was only later that he added the solo. And that's beautiful. It's beautiful solo. And it makes it much better for the ballerina. I think he should have had it from the beginning.
You talked about getting through it and pacing yourself. Generally, this kind of question was Balanchine there to guide you, or was this for you to figure out for yourself?
No, you had to figure it out for yourself. You really did. And it was simply a matter of, you know, really doing it full out and building up the stamina. And there's only that one way to do it. And that's why so often, you know, I really believe in letting the dancers go through it without stopping, without talking, you know. I mean, you can stop and, you know, 100 times getting through a ballet. But it's important that they have the opportunity to really go through it. And then you can always go back and go corrections and, you know, step by step. But they've got to have that opportunity of building up their stamina.
When Balanchine started to make square dance for you, did he say, "I'm really going to push you in this one," or did he?
Oh no. He just said, "You do this and you do that, and you know, and this comes next, and now you're, you know." Well, he never even said, "Now you can breathe," you know. Yeah.
Was there any, did he prepare for this, for the technical challenges of square dance in class? Did he start giving more beats or quicker stuff?
You know, it's strange. I don't remember him doing that particularly. I think he did give a lot of entrecôte and passé, and you know, quick, really quick, and little échappés, which certainly we use in the finale, I mean, a great deal. But not, you know, when I really remember him preparing the whole company was for Scotch Symphony. He really, really spent a great deal of time there before we were going to do it, on working on glissade, and brises and little jetés and that kind of thing. But for square dance, not too much. I think he was working on a lot of other things at the time that he was working on square dance.
I wanted to ask you about that because this is one of his great moments of productivity.
Yeah.
I think Agon went on very soon after square dance.
Pretty soon.
And then there were two big ballets he was working on.
We did, was this the Gounod time? I think it was Gounod, yeah.
And I think Stars and Stripes.
Right. It was like amazing, yeah.
Were
and
you all
he'd go
aware?
from one hour to the next with total changes of ballet, you know. It was, I mean, walk out of one studio into the other, and from square dance into Agon, or Gounod, which was again totally different, or Stars and Stripes with the, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you remember it? Were you all aware of this being a rather special?
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned before the Gargouillade as being, and that was a memorable step for all of us. I guess perhaps it hadn't been seen for a long time.
No, I don't think it had. And suddenly, you know, he was, well, I did it, so he was putting gargouillades everywhere, you know. And, but that's fun. It was, and then actually, in the girls' dance, for square dance, there's her second entrance in the square dance is, I think, a step that I don't see anyone else do. And it's kind of a combination of an emboîté and a jeté. So that, and they're even, so it's from one leg to the other as an emboîté is, but with a big stretch in between. And I don't really see that anywhere else. But it feels wonderful to do. I mean, I love that entrance.
When you were working with Balanchine in the 40s and 50s, did you feel that there was a Balanchine technique, or did you think it was that he was using classical technique and perhaps doing some things with it?
I think it is a classical technique, and I think that you know, he stretched the technique, but the way he worked with us was so careful and so specific. And I mean, he really worked for hours and hours. I mean, sometimes we would get off the bar and stand in fifth position doing port-de-bras for an hour. And then he'd suddenly say, all right, well, let's, you know, and you'd be jumping all over the place, you know, after standing in fifth for an hour. But, you know, just so that each finger was going in the right place and where you looked, and you looked into the palm of your hand and the eye, so that it was in exactly the angle that he wanted at the head. Very, very precise and particular. And then, you know, then when he wanted the speed to come into it, he didn't want you to sit on your heels, but he wanted you to go through the feet and use them. Later, he really insisted that, you know, we would do for instance, a plie for an entrechase and not put the heels down. But I think that was more, I think it was just because he was trying to break a habit of really emphasizing the heels on the floor, you know. I still think that if you because he loved the way Andrei Glevsky landed and his whole, you know, softness of technique, he didn't want to hurt that. I mean, he really didn't. And so he wanted that cat feeling, which he said so often, you know, that you have to land like a cat. Well, a cat lands paws, you know, but that doesn't mean that they don't go a little bit into their foot. So I think, you know, he was just forcing people to break habits by going completely the other way. But and he made me, you know, not put my heels down. But once I was out there really dancing, he never said, you know, don't put your heels down here, or don't do that. I mean, he or even in rehearsals, it was only in class that he was doing
that. Was the real experimental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you ever feel that what you were learning in class was so terribly radical?
He would make us do grand plie and entrechase into grand plie. Those kind of things were pretty drastic. But, I mean, he didn't do that in his ballets. And I mean, it's something that they do in Bournonville, so it wasn't, you know. It was just a little hard for the girls.
We think of square dance as being the most Patricia Wilde ballet that he made. I mean, because of its intricacy and because of its speed. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think that's absolutely true. I think that, you know, it's kind of compendium of everything that he expected of me. I mean, as I said, I loved Raymonda because it allowed me to show something that I didn't do that much. I wasn't called on to do the more lyrical things that much. So it was, you know, a challenge for me, and I felt that, you know, it gave me the opportunity to show a different side of what I could do. But square dance was a real joy. It was really great. And when you get to that last sit on his shoulders, you say, I made it, you know?